If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
All right, so the original plan was to come in here and talk about the Baltimore Orioles. Of course, this is a Baltimore station. Got to talk Baltimore sports. In fact, they never stop talking about it. However, I'm sitting home yesterday watching TV, as I do a lot, and I turn on ESPN, and I see that Atlanta's talking to the Brooklyn Nets about trading Joe Johnson, and that's not like a terrible trade. But when I was looking at it, the pieces that Brooklyn was sending back to Atlanta made no sense. Now, a lot of times when you see potential trades and reported trade talks, that's all it is. It doesn't come to fruition. You're not going to see these trades actually go through. So I changed the channel. I started watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reruns, and then someone texted me and said, "What do you think about the Joe Johnson trade?" I said, "That's not going to happen." They said, "It's official." I turned back to ESPN, and what do you know? Joe Johnson is now a Brooklyn Net. Joe Johnson's 31-year-old shooting guard in a league where shooting guards are not that deep. There's just not that many good shooting guards anymore. The game has evolved. The game has changed. It's not about the two-guard position. Now, Joe Johnson, to me, is an interesting story because 2 summers ago, when LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade were free agents, he was the 4th big name of that group. And if you actually go back and look at it, he got the biggest payday out of every single person. He got paid more than LeBron. He got paid more than Dwayne Wade, more than Chris Bosh. That's the guy who really got paid. It reminded me of when Gilbert Arenas got the big contract from the Wizards, because there were no real suitors for Gilbert Arenas. Arenas only had the Clippers talking to him, and they're like, "We'll pay you like maybe 5 years, $95 million. And then the Wizards are like, "You know what, we'll give you $140 million. And that's stupid. So Gilbert's like, "I'll be a nice guy, and I'll only take like $130 million. So he made himself look like a real good guy. We all saw how that turned out. So here's what ends up happening. Joe Johnson gets traded to the Brooklyn Nets for Jordan Farmar, Jordan Williams, Terp Pride right there, Johan Petro, Anthony Morrow, DeShawn Stevenson, the Rockets' first-round 2013 pick, a bag of Skittles, a year subscription to Playboy magazine, a current coffee maker, and a carton of Newport cigarettes. Now, I know Danny Ferry's the new GM of Atlanta. I know he likes his Newports. So you can't totally bash the trade. So here's the big kicker, though. Joe Johnson is now on the Brooklyn Nets. They just signed Gerald Wallace to a 4-year, $40 million contract. Now, Gerald Wallace, he's 29 years old, excellent perimeter defender. He averaged 14.7 rebounds last year. That's a good player right there. Joe Johnson, he averaged 19 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He's got 4 years, $90 million left on the contract. That's not worth max deal. He's not putting up the kind of numbers that he used to. He put up 25 points per game and looked like the real deal right when he signed that contract. So Atlanta's GM, he's smart. He's going to create cap space. So that's what it is. He deals Joe Johnson. Now Deron Williams, he's got to decide between Dallas and Brooklyn. It's a no-brainer. I'm not going to go play in Dallas with Dirk Nowitzki by myself. It's just the two of us. Dirk's at the end of his career. There's no more pieces. There's no center to protect the rim. So let's go back to New Jersey. Deron, it's all but done deal. He hasn't announced he's going back to Brooklyn, but he's going to. So you're going to have Deron Williams. He averages 21 points, 9 assists per game. He's 28 years old. He's a superstar. Top 10 in points, 5th in assists in the NBA. Very good player. That's your number 1. Joe Johnson, solid number 2. Playing off the ball. He scores almost 20 points a game. The guy can shoot. Then you got Gerald Wallace, excellent perimeter defender. Here's the problem now. Those 3 players take up about $50+ million a year. That leaves $5 to $8 million left in cap space. Now you have a 24-year-old center in Brook Lopez who averages 17 points a game, 7 rebounds a game for his career. Now Roy Hibbert, Indiana center, he just got offered a 4-year, $58 million contract by Portland. He averages 13 points and 11 rebounds. That means Brook Lopez is guaranteed to make more money. I score more per game, and I'm younger than you, and I'm a little more athletic than you. What is Brooklyn going to do now? You're just going to play 3 versus 5 every game? Well, we said the same thing about the Heat. Now, let's shift our attention to Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard's like, the only team I'm going to play for is Brooklyn. Like, you can't do that. You're not LeBron James. You're not going to force this team's hand. I think Orlando almost did this on purpose. They just hired a 30-year-old GM to run this team. What a terrible situation to put a guy that young who's inexperienced and to have Dwight Howard hold them hostage. Eventually, one GM in the NBA is going to have to be like, look, we're not going to sign and trade you. Just go to the other team. We'll stink for a couple of years, and we'll build through the draft. But Orlando's not going to do that because a 30-year-old general manager is not going to want to have that on his resume. So you take a top 5 player in Dwight Howard, and he says, you trade me to Brooklyn, and the general manager, he says, sure, I'll trade you to Brooklyn. So now he's in talks with Brooklyn, and this is what Brooklyn has to offer you. Brook Lopez, he's pretty good. Marshawn Brooks, who I really like, he's a rookie out of Providence. He scored 12 points per game last year, and he reminds me of Jamal Crawford. He's got swagger to his game. He's a swagger jacker. Someone who's just going to sit there and rip jump shots all day, no matter how many he misses. Sometimes that's bad, but other times it's amazing. So he's going to be a good player in the future. That's a good get for Orlando if they do it. Then you're talking Kris Humphries. Now, the highlight of his career is having sex with Kim Kardashian. I mean, you can hate on him or you can like him. He scored 14 points a game, had 11 rebounds a game last season. Career year for him. Good player, but probably a little overrated at this point. He's not going to get much better than that. And now Brooklyn says, we'll also throw in 3 first-round picks with this, 2013, 2015, and 2017. So they're all going to be back into the first-round picks because if this deal actually happens, then you're going to have Dwight Howard, Deron Williams, Joe Johnson, and Gerald Wallace all on the same court. That's a guaranteed last 4 pick every single year in the first round. Those are not good picks. And then Brooklyn's like, you know what, we'll also be nice. We'll throw in our karaoke machine, a box set DVD of all the Rocky movies, and a $50 gift certificate to Bed Bath & Beyond. And that's all right, but that's not good. Right now, if you're Orlando, your worst case scenario is that Dwight Howard plays the whole year for you, completely dogs it, and then you somehow still make the playoffs as like an 8 seed, and then at the end of the year he puts you through what LeBron did, and he has his own version of the decision, which you know he's going to leave. The best case scenario is you convince him to stay. That's so laughable at this point. That's not going to happen. But you got to love Dwight Howard because last year he said, you know what, I want to stay here. Here's what you got to do. Just meet all my demands. He said, you know what, Big Baby Davis in Boston, he's one of my best friends. Why don't you guys bring him in here? And then maybe I'll stay. I'll have my close buddy around. So they trade Brandon Bass away, who's clearly better than Big Baby Davis. And then you're stuck with Big Baby Davis, who now he gets paid too much, he doesn't produce enough, and Brandon Bass had a great playoffs with the Celtics. You don't have any real players on Orlando outside of Dwight Howard, and you have some bad contracts in Baby Davis, J.J. Redick, Jason Richardson, and Hedo Turkoglu, who's still owed 2 years, $22 million or something. It's really awful. So now let's hop back to Atlanta, who looks like an idiot in the first trade for Joe Johnson. Or do they? They make a second trade that doesn't go talked about yesterday. Marvin Williams traded to Utah for Devin Harris. Marvin Williams, 2 years left on his deal. Devin Harris, 1. Where does this put Atlanta right now? They have 4 players right now who are pretty good on the team. You have Jeff Teague, you have Josh Smith, Al Horford, and Devin Harris. And the only one of those guys who's under contract after this season is going to be Al Horford. And Josh Smith, there's a good chance that he'll re-sign there if you get Dwight Howard. Now, Dwight Howard, you're going, what about him on Atlanta? He wanted to go to L.A., he wanted to go to Dallas, he wanted to go to Brooklyn, he wants a big market. Atlanta's not the smallest market, and he's from Atlanta. That would almost make sense. And so, now this brings you to another interesting point. Chris Paul did not extend a couple days ago with the Clippers. Why wouldn't he do that? He's still trying to play out this process. Everyone got worked up when the NBA rejected the trade to the Lakers last year. But in reality, he never said, I want to go to the Lakers. He never said, I want to go to the Clippers. He said at Carmelo Anthony's wedding in a toast, this has been confirmed, he stood up and said, I want to be a part of my own big 3 with Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony. Now, that's definitely not going to happen at this point. But he's really tight with Dwight Howard, and he's from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is a 5.5-hour drive to Atlanta. And you know he ain't driving, so it's going to be short. That's a short trip home if he wants to go home. So that leaves me thinking Dwight Howard's probably not going to the Nets, because I don't think they can afford it unless Mikhail Prokhorov wants to spend $100 million in luxury tax. You go over that luxury tax and you start paying crazy amounts of figures. And they got $5-8 million left. They're going to be $20 million over with the rest of that team. That's going to cost them $50 million.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.